Hello, my name is Andrew, and this is the spirituality section of the Real Andrew Kelly channel. Um, Today's chapter is labeled as uncertainty, and as I find myself being rather uncertain on how to tackle this issue. I'm not kidding, by the way, because of course there are so many aspects of life that are involved when you come to uncertainty. In general, I find that in our society being loosely described as various segments of the Western world society, uncertainty is sometimes confused with doubt, where my assertion will be that this is not the same thing. To oversimplify, uncertainty is being, for example, unsure of what to do, not knowing which way to go, or if to stand still. Doubt has more of the ego attached to it, I think, where you already kind of know what you're going to do or what you want to do, and the doubt has to do with uncertainty if this will serve me well, if this will service someone else well. Uncertainty, I think, is a more pure state of being where you're in the land of where am I, what am I, who am I, what am I doing, where am I going, and so on. This will become more important as this topic is discussed a bit further. It seems curious to me that as we discuss uncertainty, the first thing that pops to mind is the ego. In the previous chapter, I described how the way I deal with ego for myself is always being vigilant to see what my ego is up to. It's this little terrorist in me who always wants to do me or somebody else harm. The other thing that I focus on is, what is my intent here? What do I intend to accomplish with whatever action it is that I'm thinking of doing? And that brings me to pretense. I think from a young age we are trained to pretend to be feeling, thinking, and up to things that are other than what we really intend to do, which we already know we intend to do, and being able to avoid broadcasting this to the world at large because we perceive that this will keep us safe. Safe from what? As a child, it's the parent, it's the neighbor, it's the bully, it's the brother, the sister, the mother, And I think to a large extent, in a large part, of our various societies, we are trained to be deceitful. We deceive people about what's going on with us, and this is strengthened by some future event which will serve as proof to us that we are right and correct in taking this path. Uncertainty, I contend, I assert that uncertainty in most cases is the most positive state that we can actually be in regarding our life, regarding actions we have or should not take, decisions we have to make. Uncertainty is that point at which we are most open to the two major forces in our life. Uncertainty makes us more open to ego and the dictates of evil, basically. Um, if you do this, you might be able to get that. Whether it involves another member of the human race or some personal goal that we have for ourselves. Now that brings us to the truth and sincerity and being genuine or being deceitful, pretending, presenting a front to the world in order to protect ourselves. These are all human traits. I mean, excuse me, human traits. It's very understandable that we would want to keep our thoughts and intentions and feelings to ourselves because we don't want somebody else, external forces, whether they're for good or for bad, parents, brothers, sisters, etc. We don't want them messing around with us. We don't want them making decisions for us, and so on. But one of the themes that I'm discovering, that I'm covering in these chapters, is what forces are we allowing ourselves to be vulnerable to? The world is full of good and bad, and it's not one time it's good, one time it's bad. It's always a mixture. It's always, well, there's a little bit of good, a little bit of bad. We don't really know who means to do what and why. We don't really, for the most part, understand how and why people operate the way they do. And we have to make really sometimes life-changing decisions based on not really understanding what's going on. And we hate the idea that somebody will perceive that we are unsure of what is going on, as though other people are not. I think when we are younger, we are more inclined to believe that we don't know what's going on. As we get older, the habit of presenting a front that shows us to be confident and sure and knowing what's going on, excuse me, that is actually harder to deal with, both for ourselves and for other people, with respect to what is really going on. So telling the truth involves a few factors. One is, do we want to tell the truth? Another is, do we know what the truth is? And the third is thinking about how other people will receive that truth and how they will perceive it and what they would do about it. And this seems to occupy a large percentage of our mind much of the time. And what I think we miss in our normal day-to-day operation as a human being, we miss being vulnerable to the positive. We miss we don't pay enough attention to the guidance that we could get directly from God if we were willing to admit, I don't know, I need some help here. Um, and I don't mean that in an overly simplistic way. Um, there's a human being in our life with whom we want to get closer. We will ask all our friends, people who barely know us and barely know the other person, for their opinion. But no, we're not going to ask people who are closest to us. Of course, a lot of the time we can't really trust them because they don't always tell us what we want to hear. And we already know what we want, but we don't know if it's a good thing to do. Get closer to someone, change a job, go on a 6-month vacation somewhere. It could be anything. And so uncertainty is an opportunity for both God to give us guidance and the ego to give us guidance and force us really to make a choice. And when important things are concerned, it's never easy. It's never clean. It's never clear. It's always messy. And if I do, and they will do this, and if I feel that, they will feel this, or they would say this. It sounds like life, and I believe that it is. But I think that strengthening that element of trust that we have in God, as opposed to strengthening the certainty that we have regarding evil, bad intentions, bad purpose, deliberate desire to harm myself or somebody else, that we always seem to be very certain of, and for good cause, because we've seen that before. But remaining open and leaving an opening for God, for the uncertainty that we really can't control God. God will be God. And the uncertainty on whether God is even hearing us, seeing the situation we're in, as though God is some kind of an idiot and not paying attention. That basic question deserves a little bit of personal attention from each and every one of us, because I say that God is everybody's God equally. And if what you need guidance from God for is on how to outmaneuver or harm somebody, don't forget, God is also their God. And God, when God has a chance, will give you guidance. My own personal experience is more often than not being kicked in the butt in the right direction. I get upset, I get angry, but afterwards I'm grateful. Saved me a lot of time, because I was willing to take a chance on taking guidance from something that is unknown to me for the large part. I have a good spiel regarding God. My belief, my being aligned with God, it sounds great. But when push comes to shove, I have to make choices without any knowledge of the ins and outs of what affects those choices. And I have to gamble on what God's going to tell me to do. Sounds a little juvenile, doesn't it? So for me, regarding uncertainty, having the certainty of God constantly present and constantly affirming me and validating who I am, even as I'm being kicked into motion for something I don't really want to do, but I should. Almost like a mom with a kid, dad with a kid. Um, Sometimes a little smack on the butt and get moving type thing works miracles. There's not a lot of talk involved. So, uncertainty. Do not be afraid of uncertainty. Uncertainty is the time where a reminder to ourselves that God is around us and in us all the time and cares about everyone. Without being stressed, apparently there's infinite resources up there. But really, part of the purpose of life is to learn to make certain choices that perhaps we didn't know how to make before, whether it's this lifetime or a past lifetime or whatever. And while we're on the subject of past lifetimes, I'm personally convinced we all have had past lifetimes, and that's that. I think that it's a mistake for people to concern themselves in some fantastical idea of what may have happened in the past lifetime, who they were, you know, some self-aggrandizement is always present. Yes, I think we're here to continue fine-tuning our own abilities regarding how we operate in our lifetime towards other people, towards the planet, towards God. And this is a learning process that could very well last centuries, right? But that when we are uncertain, forget the doubts, forget the uncertainty, and be certain that there is something within you which is rooting for you and wanting you to do something new, something that you haven't done before that might scare you, or anyway, I think you understand where I'm coming from. So uncertainty is not a bad thing. Uncertainty is one of these times in our career as a human being. We have periods of uncertainty, and when they occur, that's when we are the most open to guidance, and we're also the most susceptible to evil, the conscious, deliberate desire to harm somebody or something. It's as simple as that. I didn't say easy, but simple. Here are the forces. Here's where you're being asked to go to, and should you or shouldn't you, to be or not to be. And that, my friends, is the end of a very short chapter, and that is the question. See you on the next one. Thank you.